Welcome back to the Week 2 preview for the Fantasy Football Stock Report. Chris Pearson here as always. Now this is the duds video. These are the guys that really kind of let you down week 1 or maybe gotten injured and now you're wondering, who do I fill in for them on my fantasy team? Just some guys that were really big disappointments. They're always the guys that are good in week 1, and then there's always the guys that really kind of let you down, the hair pullers, that I've mentioned before. These guys that really just kind of fall through for you. So here are these guys that I'm looking at that I'm really worried about. Obviously, first let's talk about some quarterback injuries. Jake Locker of Tennessee went down late in the Titans game against New England. The good news is it was his non-throwing shoulder that he separated. We didn't know for sure which shoulder it was until we got the report later from ESPN that it said it was his non-throwing shoulder. From what I've heard, he hasn't been ruled out for this week's game yet, but we're just not sure on that. But all signs are pointing to that he's actually going to be, for the most part, it sounds to me like he's going to be all right. If Locker would not start, obviously Matt Hasselbeck would be the guy, but I think Locker's a more safe play than Hasselbeck going forward. I still say the Tennessee offense, I don't know if you could really rely on any of these guys at this point, except for maybe, actually, I don't know really there's anybody that you can. Tennessee's offense didn't do much against New England. They're not a big point-producing offense, so really they're nothing more. The Tennessee quarterback, whoever starts, nothing more than a number 2 deep option. John Skelton of Arizona is another guy. It looked like it when he got carted off the field. It looked like a pretty gruesome leg injury. Fortunately, the report came out that it's nothing more than just a sprained right ankle. They're hoping it's not the high ankle sprain. But the concern is that he might miss this week and a couple more going forward if that is the case. Monitor that situation. But it looks like Kevin Kolb is going to be the guy in Arizona, at least for the next few weeks. And really, he did a great job filling in for Skelton when he left that game. So I think Kevin Kolb certainly is a guy that you definitely want to at least maybe add to your roster. A number 2 guy, at least for you this week. Let's see, who does Arizona play this week? See if the matchup is juicy or not. Arizona this week plays New England, and really that's not a New England's defense, they certainly look strong against Tennessee. Granted, they were playing Tennessee, but they tend to give up a lot in the secondary, though they've improved that in recent years. So I think Kolb is nothing more than a maybe decent number 2 option for you. I wouldn't recommend starting him against New England unless you're desperate and you have no other backup option. So again, nothing more than number 2, but it looks like Skelton will be out for a little bit of time. Running backs, this is a big one. Fred Jackson of Buffalo. This one, a lot of people really like Fred Jackson, start him to be their number 1, number 2 running back. The report is that it was a injury to one of the ligaments in his knee. I think it was like the lateral collateral ligament in his knee. He's definitely going to miss a couple weeks from what we've been told. So that opens the door for C.J. Spiller, and Spiller took advantage. He had a great first week, 14 carries for $169 with a touchdown. Also had a fumble, but for the most part, the stats alone were strong enough for a strong week for Spiller. The likelihood, though, is that Spiller is not really available in your league. A lot of people probably drafted him to be a handcuff to Fred Jackson. But if he's out there, you definitely want to grab C.J. Spiller. He's going to be a strong number 2, maybe even low number 1 while Jackson is out. He is a speedster. I remember when he played college at Clemson that he was just a speed freak. Reminded me of Darren Sproles. So, again, C.J. Spiller certainly worth picking up if he's out there for you. Definitely. But for Fred Jackson owners, you might want to put him on your bench until he's fully recovered. Jackson has always been an injury risk over the years, and once again, unfortunately for him, it had to happen week 1. I mentioned that Tennessee offense. Chris Johnson let down his fantasy owners again. What is it with this guy? He goes from CJ2K one year to disappointing the next. Had 11 carries for only 4 yards, just a complete and utter bust. The positive, he was going against New England, tough defense. But the negative, we've seen this song and dance. We know what this is about. Obviously, you're not going to drop him. In fact, many leagues might even be undroppable. But you might want to only start him going forward if he has a really favorable matchup. And this week, they're at San Diego. And San Diego, you just saw what they did to Oakland, although Darren McFadden had a decent game for them there. San Diego pretty much held the Raiders in check. So, but that also is most of the Raiders' own fault because they made a lot of mistakes. Can you really rely on him going forward? I mean, it's tough. It really just depends on the matchup. If you have no other options, yeah, start him as your maybe more of a number 2 guy, but he's definitely not the elite running back that he was anymore. The big surprise was in Pittsburgh, where we knew Rashard Mendenhall was still not going to go. Isaac Redman, though, yeah, he got the bulk of the carries. He got 11 carries, but only for 20 yards and was outgained by Jonathan Dwyer, the rookie, out of Pittsburgh. Really, can we rely on any of these guys till Mendenhall comes back? Well, it's looking more like Dwyer's going to be the guy. In fact, he's been picked up in a lot of leagues this week because a lot of people now are thinking, Redmond's a little bit banged up. Dwyer might be the guy, the safer play. And it's looking like that's the case. So until Mendenhall comes back, maybe you put in a claim on Jonathan Dwyer if you're desperate for running back depth. This week, Pittsburgh is hosting the Jets. That's not exactly a great matchup because we all know how good the Jets defense is, but Spiller had a great week against him, so maybe Dwyer gets some holes open up for him and has a good game for you. So I see, I think Dwyer is the better option of the two. Number 2, number 3 guy, a little bit of upside as long as Mendenhall is out. The surprising stat that shocked me is that Mendenhall is still owned in 80% of CBS leagues, even though he's out. And, I'm not a big fan of stashing guys, but, plus he's coming off that knee injury. But we saw AP come off strong from the knee injury. We saw Charles come off strong with the injury. Who knows what Mendenhall's going to do when he comes back. So, but for now, if you're desperate, if you need depth at running back, Jonathan Dwyer is a guy I might want to take a look at. Other running backs that disappointed. David Wilson of the Giants. Boy, he's in the doghouse now. It's not expected that he's going to be starting or having a prominent role anytime soon. 2 carries for 4 yards with a fumble. When you fumble first week, it doesn't matter if you're a rookie, veteran, whatever. When you fumble in the first week, you definitely put a black mark on yourself. And David Wilson didn't help his cause any. Right now, leave him on the bench, leave him on the waiver. All he is a handcuff ran now to Ahmad Bradshaw. No point in playing him whatsoever. Trent Richardson of Cleveland, we kind of maybe expected a letdown performance with the whole knee concern. 19 carries for 39 yards. So that does show with all the carries that he will be the feature back. But it's not what you expected. But don't panic with Trent Richardson. I think as the season goes on, as he gets more comfortable with the NFL style, he's only going to get better. So don't panic on Trent Richardson just yet. But again, it is Cleveland, and you don't know what to expect from the Cleveland offense. But I think he's going to be maybe like a Steven Jackson, where the Rams don't have playmakers besides him. Maybe that's the role that Trent Richardson's going to take on, is he's going to be the only playmaker in Cleveland because, people know you can't rely on Greg Little. I mean, come on. So, yeah, those were the running backs. Other running backs concerns. The Saints backs, Darren Sproles kind of saved his fantasy day with the late receiving touchdown, but he had nothing on the ground against Washington, which was kind of a big surprise, but I guess it just shows how improved Washington's defense is. Pierre Thomas and Mark Ingram, though they're nothing but handcuffs, they should mostly be left off of fantasy rosters going forward. Cardinals running backs, you can't really rely on these guys either. Between their health issues and the low production they put out, can you really trust them? I don't think so. It's really a toss-up between Beanie Wells and Ryan Williams, which one you'd rather go with. So really, I'd stay away from that. And the Packers running backs were a big disappointment. It looks like, because the leading rusher was Aaron Rodgers, which, is a shocker. Cedric Benson, though, I think will get better as the season goes on, but he's their main option, obviously, with James Starks out. Cedric Benson's going to be your main guy in Green Bay. Wide receivers and tight ends that disappointed us. Giants receivers were a big disappointment in the first week, except for Martellus Bennett, who I had as a sleeper tight end. He was the only Giant receiver to even make it in the end zone, which was kind of surprising. But you got to be a bit worried about Victor Cruz. He had 6 catches, 58 yards. He had 3 drops. That's the most he's had, I think it said, in his career. So that's definitely a concern. Hakeem Nicks only had 4 catches for 38 yards. Cruz is still going to be the main guy. I think he's going to be all right. The drops have you a little bit worried, but not too much. Nix is, though, the concern. He had the foot issue. A little bit worried there going forward. And don't buy into Dominic Hickson just yet. Yeah, he had 3 catches for 55 yards. I'm not fully sold on him just yet. A little bit of a concern going forward. Titus Young. Titus Young, what are you doing? I mean, seriously, you were expected to be the number 2 guy in Detroit behind Megatron. You were supposed to leapfrog Nate Burleson. That clearly didn't happen week 1. And he made a dumb decision by headbutting a guy from the Rams. I mean, come on. What are you doing? 1 catch for 14 yards. This is clearly a concern. You know, if this trend continues, clearly Burleson's going to leapfrog him. I'm not even, I guess I made a big mistake trying to think I was going to start him last week. I'm not doing that going forward. I grabbed, as for tonight, my number 3, I grabbed Randall Cobb off the waiver wire in Green Bay, or even James Jones is a good option there instead for my number 3. Now that Titus Young is a big-time disappointment, leave him on the bench until he gets his act together, if he ever does. If he doesn't, he's going to become a droppable player really soon. Wes Welker, New England, kind of a head-scratcher here. 3 catches for 14 yards. You're getting outproduced by both tight ends and Brandon Lloyd. I mean, that's a little bit of a concern. You know, if this is a continuing trend, we hope it's not, because we know Welker's a reliable fantasy receiver. But you have to wonder what New England was doing here with this. You know, dare we say he drops to a number 2 or worse if this continues? Have to wait and see. Monitor it really closely. Other receivers, the Jags, until a number 1 really emerges, I wouldn't trust any of these guys, not even Justin Blackmon. I don't buy into Cecil Shorts yet. Blaine Gabbert's their quarterback. I mean, yeah, it was a nice performance, golf clap, woohoo, but I'm not thrilled on that yet. Unless there's more production and consistency, I don't buy into the Jags just yet. Buccaneers wide receivers, stay away. I repeat, stay away. Not even Vincent Jackson. Don't touch him. There was nothing in week 1. Josh Freeman is your quarterback. He's so inconsistent. Hair puller by the biggest imagination possible. No, don't touch the Bucs wide receivers. And really, in general, Dolphins offensive players, I wouldn't touch them either. Ryan Tannehill showed us he's clearly not the best option in Miami. Miami's going to have, I think, a long year this year. I wouldn't even touch Reggie Bush. There's no weapons. No weapons in Miami. None. And tight ends real quick. Dustin Keller of the Jets. You really can't rely on him anymore, I don't think. 1 catch for 7 yards. Bona fide hair puller candidate. Don't even bother starting him or even having him on rosters at this point. There's too many weapons in New York, clearly, and Keller's not getting anything, so don't worry about him. And I was concerned about Witten. He was coming off the spleen injury, though. He only had 2 catches for 10 yards. But, monitor his performance. But, depending on the workload he's going to get, he's going to be starting option this week. I still think he's okay. I think he's going to be all right going forward. Just monitor it. And see what happens with him going forward. All right, that's all I got. Guys, those are the duds for the week and the studs video. If you missed that, check that out as well on my channel. I always appreciate your guys' comments and questions on your duds or who let you down for week 1. That you're worried about going forward in week 2, leave them down below. I will try to answer as many as I can. You know that. I'm trying to keep you guys connected on winning your fantasy seasons. A championship is the greatest thing that you can achieve in fantasy football, and I really want you guys to experience it. So keep on watching. Thank you so much for the support. You guys are amazing. Good luck again in week 2 this week. Hope it all pans out for you. And stay tuned because we break it down right here on the Fantasy Football Stock Report. Thanks, guys, and good luck.